Let's show a raise of hands for those of us who actually believe that corporal punishment yields positive results from children. Actually, the studies show otherwise. And we're going to speak more about that in this episode. My name is Brianna Vernon, and this is the Independent Report. Now let's speak about corporal punishment in the context of the Jamaican society. And I know that has probably brought up some troubling memories for many of you, as it is so common in the Jamaican household for children to grow up getting beaten with a belt, with whatever other object their parent might be able to find at the time, or simply with the hand of their parent. And a Jamaican parent would argue and say, well, picnic can't hear him have to feel, or she have to feel. Many Jamaicans support the thought of corporal punishment or slapping or hitting a child to get them to behave properly, right? And some leniency can be provided in some ways in terms of understanding that a parent might really believe that this is a true way to get their child to be on the straight and a narrow path and to not follow bad company or to be influenced negatively by others or to know that they were wrong for doing something. But to be honest, even when you just think about it from a human perspective, and then further on, when you actually do research on it, you realize that corporal punishment really does not positively benefit children. But what many Jamaican parents see as it positively benefiting the child is when they get the belt or they raise their hand and they see the child shrink in fear. They see the child start to cry. A parent might say, yes, it's working. But really what's happening there is the child is showing fear, is showing, yes, they even might be sorry for what they did, but are they sorry because they understand the gravity of the situation, or are they sorry because they are afraid of what the parent is going to do to them? And so many parents see this showcase of fear as something, yes, the child knows he did something wrong, he understands or she understands, but really they're afraid of you, their parent, and that fear, without you realizing, is actually causing distance between you and the child. Let's check some facts from the World Health Organization. They have found that corporal punishment increases children's behavioral problems over time, and they would say it has no positive outcomes. They go on to say that all corporal punishment carries an inbuilt risk of escalation. Studies suggest, according to the World Health Organization, that parents who use corporal punishment are at heightened risk of perpetrating severe maltreatment. And even further than that, many times I've even seen it with my own eyes where people who seek to, physically discipline their children, that child in turn begins to showcase physical violence as well because of what they receive or see displayed by their parent. And so it's almost like it's not even solving the issue, but now creating a larger issue that society will possibly have to deal with later on. You've heard many times, I'm sure, where people who have had rough childhoods, who were possibly physically disciplined by their parents, they'll come and say, oh, my mom or my dad used to beat me so many times, or they beat me with this object or that object, right? They throw a shoe at me. Yes, I've heard the stories, and I know you have too. They threw this at me, or whatever the case may be. And how that, as they're recounting those stories, you realize that it still troubles them to this day. And so that shows you that there is a mental, a negative mental impact that the child experiences that many times follows them into adulthood if it's not dealt with. because of those experiences they had with their parents. Because when you think about it, why do many of us feel so comfortable hitting our children? Not even a simple slap or to say, don't do that, or whatever the case may be, but literally hitting them with the force of our hands. How do some of us not see that as blatant abuse? I think we have a misconception that because the child is ours, that we can do whatever we want with them, that they somehow become property. And I know that many parents, they probably aren't thinking of it that way, in negatively, to say that this child is my property. But in a Jamaican household, when a parent says, I may bring in a this world, I can't take you out, do you think you really have that right? I mean, I know it's not said necessarily in a way as to be taken specifically or literally, I should say. But when you really dig deep beyond the layer, you will actually uncover that many Jamaican parents kind of do think like that they own this child and therefore are free to do whatever they want with the child. Now, I'm not advocating for disobedient children. By no means. I do not encourage rude children around me, and I don't foster disobedient behavior from children around me, right? But what I'm showing you is there are different ways to get your child to behave. And a lot of it starts from how they were grown from the ground up, from they were itsy bitsy babies, from them idea and them knee. And of course, different children will showcase different behavioral issues. Every child is not the same. But I've seen it so many times where a parent may not have been, detailed enough, or the parent may not have impressed discipline enough on the child growing up by teaching them right from wrong, by instilling certain proper behaviors in the child from they were very, very small. And now when the child is exhibiting behaviors that aren't positive, or they may be rude, or whatever the case may be, it's now the parent many times is trying to reel the child in. And oftentimes, I won't say it's too late, but you have a bit of a work to do now, because for so long you've allowed the child to do whatever they wanted. So how are you now going to discipline the child years after, or discipline the child with the expectation that when you say don't do that once, they're just going to listen, when you did not set that foundation initially? It doesn't work like that, right? And there are also a set of parents who they have grown the child in an environment of violence, of cursing, of indiscipline, of disobedience. Even the parents themselves may display some of these characteristics, but yet they are so puzzled as to why the child is behaving that way. They are mirroring you. Children mirror their environment. I have to tell you, it's the truth. Maybe they have taken on that behavioral pattern from school, from playing with children in the community, or maybe at home, but wherever they have received that pattern from, it's a reflection of their environment. And so you have parents who are just loose at the mouth, but yet they don't expect their child to curse, but you curse in front of your child. And then you want to discipline and physically discipline your child at that. When they do so, without explaining, first, you aren't a good example. But that aside, when you seek to discipline a child physically, that's not telling them intellectually what they did wrong. That is just instilling fear. Fine, they may not do it again, or they may not do it again for you to see. And so the lesson that you might think you are teaching can fall on deaf ears. I've seen it with my own eyes, the benefit of actually talking to a child, educating a child, and I've seen the child literally understand and realize, okay, I shouldn't do this because this will happen, rather than that child's reality being, I did this and I was met with a slap. Even sometimes what the child has done may not even be something that bad. Maybe it's something the parent isn't in favor of. Maybe the child didn't put something back where the child should have put it, and they're met with a slap. And they're confused. They're like, what did I do that's so bad? A lot of parents, they think that just because a child does something incorrectly, not necessarily even rude, but incorrectly, that they should hit them for that. And so it's so vast, right? And a lot of this takes place in Jamaican households, and many parents are contributing to adults now who were mentally scarred from childhood. Because for the life of me, I can't understand. If you as an adult don't want someone to hit you, much less to hit you hard, why would you want to do that to a child who's so much smaller than you? Do you think the child is so silly that they can't understand words, that you have to use your hands? Children pick up on energy. There's a reason why sometimes a child won't want to go around someone from first glance, because they just, for some reason, as we'd say in Jamaica, them spirit not take them. So when your child sees you, even if they did something wrong, when they see you coming at them in this negative way, you might be saying to yourself, well, I'm disciplining the child so that they can learn right from wrong. But the energy that they're getting from you is one of anger, one of disgust, and that is portraying to them as something that they should be fearful of. You don't want your child to fear you. You want your child to respect you. And many Jamaican parents don't know the difference. And of course, there are many Jamaican parents who don't mistreat their children, who don't abide by corporal punishment as if it's gospel. And there are many Jamaican parents who they will slap their child, they will slap them or whatever the case may be, but they don't engage in the hitting or beating. And you have those parents. There are many parents who sit and speak with their children and get positive results out of their children. They also exist in Jamaica. But you also have a large set of parents on the island that swear by corporal punishment, the boof, the baff, and the beef, right? I remember growing up, I wasn't no angel child. I gave my fair share of problems, but one thing is for sure, I respected my mom. I didn't fear my mom. And fear should not be the goal. Respect should be. And many times we mix the two. They're not the same. Fear, you know what fear is? Have you ever been afraid of something? They say each of us, we have our own fear. Think of something that you were terribly afraid of, and imagine your child carrying that same type of fear for you. You are inflicting pain on your child, especially with some of the type of beatings that you probably give them. And when they're getting that pain, they don't have time to think, oh, mommy loves me. So they're thinking, what could I have possibly done that would cause my mom, who I believe loves me, or my dad, who I believe loves me, to do this? Yeah, sure, there are some wayward children that need stricter disciplining measures than others. But that doesn't mean that it warrants them to be abused or to be beaten until they are bruised sometimes. I mean, that's just how I see it. Sometimes corporal punishment, it can get to a place where it is violence. And my point is, I have seen it where you have people who rude, yes, but then the parent talk to them and then listen. Like I said, every child is not the same, but I believe a lot of what goes into it is how they're raised and the environments that they frequent. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. Some parents, it is their way or the highway, and they treat their children as, you know. For me tell him anything what I want to do with him or what I want to do with her, I just that. Yeah, you also have to remember, they're humans. Yes, they should respect you. Yes, they should be obedient. But they are also human beings. So, I say no to corporal punishment, especially to the degree where the heavy slapping, the heavy beating, no. Especially to that degree, I am totally against it. I used to say that I wasn't. Now, I feel like sometimes you give a child a little slap, maybe that's passable. But I still believe that if we could get to a point where we don't have to engage in corporal punishment at all, I believe it's possible. But if we could get to that point, it would be greater for parent-child relationships. Now, what do you think about this topic, corporal punishment, especially in Jamaica? Leave your thoughts below. Comment, like, share, and subscribe. My name is Brianna Vernon, and this was the Independent Report. See you next time.